Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. Alright, welcome to the second entry into the Dungeon Dive Presents the Masterclass series. And in this series, which I believe is going to be 3 episodes, we are going to be taking a deep dive into the Secrets of the Lost Tomb, a cooperative pulp action adventure board game from Everything Epic Games. So as I just mentioned on my year-end review video, that Secrets of the Lost Station, the spiritual follow-up to this game, was probably my most disappointing. I was most disappointed in that game this year. And that is only because Secrets of the Lost Tomb is my favorite game of all time. And when there's a spiritual follow-up to your favorite game of all time and it doesn't hit those same notes, those same chords, and just knock you out of your socks, that is a disappointment. There really isn't another game like Secrets of the Lost Tomb, at least that I know of. Maybe the closest thing would be something like Arkham Horror, but I have more fun with this than I do just about any other game. So, the first game in the Masterclass series was Warhammer Quest Silver Tower. And it is a masterclass in efficiency. It does exactly what it needs to do with as little as possible. It's super narrowly focused. It's elegant. It's a game made with brevity in mind. That was one of the designer's goals that he has stated before, was he wanted to make a game that gave you a big experience but didn't need a ton of components. Secrets of the Lost Tomb is the exact opposite of that game. This is a master class study in overabundance. This does a lot with a lot, and then more piled on top of that. Now this video, I know I've already done a video on Secrets of the Lost Tomb, but I was very unhappy with the way that video turned out. I had this filter on my camera to try to give it a widescreen look, and it just ended up making everything look dark and dirty, and you couldn't read anything on the screen. So I didn't feel like I did the game justice. And so I am back now to rectify that and enter this amazing, wonderful, exuberant mess of a game into the Dungeon Dive Hall of Fame. So in my talk on exploration, in my What I Talk About series, I discuss how a game can create the illusion of exploration by making it feel like anything can happen at any time. And that is really where Secrets of the Lost Tomb shines. From the very first time I played this game, I felt like I was on some totally unhinged, just completely wild adventure, where everything about the game just it like balanced just precariously upon the knife's edge of not completely crumbling under the fiddliness and chaos. It's like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride meets Indiana Jones Adventure by way of Choi Hak, one of my favorite Hong Kong directors, who just makes wild and crazy movies that are completely unhinged. And that really is Secrets of the Lost Tomb's strengths, is the way it just deals with excess and creates this illusion of this grand, amazing exploration adventure that you really feel like at any time anything can happen. So as you guys know, one of the authors that I love a lot is A. Merritt. He is an author that I talk about quite a bit on the Dungeon Dive. And this book, The Face of the Abyss, is very, very good. And he is an author who, when I play these kinds of adventure games, these pulp adventure games, he is one of the authors that I think about most. So this was originally published in, what was the year here? Early 1900s. I'm not sure why this doesn't have the earliest publication. I mean, this is from 1978, this edition, but I will find the original. It was originally in some serialized in some pulp magazines, I believe in the early 1900s, but I will find out for sure. But this is just a wonderful book, and I just wanted to read part of it here to set the stage. They went by another passage than that by which they had entered the temple, high-roofed and wider. The Lord of Folly for once did not flitter. He walked purposefully, as though eager for some rendezvous. They entered the cavern of the lost wisdom by a door which opened to the touch of Tito's red rod. The new corridor had cut off all that empty space that they had traversed before, and the sealed treasure of the serpent people and most ancient Atlanti lay before them. There was no sign of the Dark Master, nor any of his followers, man nor lizard people. The cavern seemed untouched, crystal shimmering palely, metals gleaming and jewels glinting fugitively, the puzzling shapes designed for uses unguessable, shadowy in the dim light. So, A Face in the Abyss, it's in the high Andes in a cavern of unearthly jewels. Nicholas Graydon confronts the Dark Lord of a prehistoric civilization. His colossal stone face beckons from across the chasm. The eyes promise wealth and power, but deliver death. Just as the Lord of Evil is about to claim his victim, the voluptuous snake woman breaks the satanic spell, saving Graydon from the abyss, saving him for the battle to come. I mean, this could have really been a scenario in Secrets of the Lost Tomb. We'll be taking a look at a couple other books at the beginning of each subsequent video in this series. So in this first series, we're going to just kind of take a look at what the base game is all about. We're going to be taking a look at the characters and the tiles. So I know I have done a video on this before, and I probably will be repeating some of that information. I didn't go back and watch that, to make sure that I'm only saying new stuff. So think of this video as both a new and a supplemental video. This is the Evil Dead 2 to Evil Dead for the Dungeon Dive. We'll look at Secrets of the Lost Tomb. So I know I have mentioned before, but I did not know anything about this game. I was not really following Kickstarter when it came out, and my wife and I, for my birthday one year, we drove up to a little town north of us, and I wanted to go to a game store up there. It's in Bellingham, Washington. It's called Dark Tower Games, and at the time, they had an amazing selection. They've really cut back their selection of board games, unfortunately. The last time I went there, I was really disappointed. Probably because the first time I went there, I found my favorite game of all time, and that doesn't happen very often. People who are into these kinds of dungeon crawl style adventure games, it's not often that we walk into a game store and find something on the shelf that we don't know about. Most of these games we know about years before they come out because they're on Kickstarter, and it's very rare that we are surprised, or at least a lot of us who are really into it are surprised by a game. So the fact that I walked into this store never knowing about this game, picking it up and just seeing the back of this box, and it was like I had fallen into some magical portal where some god had made a game exactly for me. So this says, Secrets of the Lost Tomb, the greatest adventure for the fate of the world. It has been 113 years, and the three-tailed comet's flight once again heralds the coming of the tomb, an ancient and enigmatic necropolis, a vault brimming with a wealth of lost knowledge and magical artifacts, only known to myth and legend. Now members of an esoteric secret society called the Eternal Order of Perseus set off on an expedition to this lost tomb to protect mankind from the secret supernatural powers and ancient evils that, if left to their own devices, will alter the course of fate itself. And then just as you can see, I mean, you have your dungeon tiles set up, you have your stacks of tiles, you have your huge stacks of cards, just all this great adventure looming on the back of the box here. Some ancient pharaoh demon god there. I got the game. You know, I took it back to my car. I opened it. We went out to lunch. I was reading the rule book while we were sitting at lunch, and I became so infatuated with the game that right there, I went on to Amazon or any other website I could find and ordered all of the expansions that I could find for the game and had like everything for this game within a few days. Now, unfortunately, the game is very out of print. The expansions are very expensive, but they are planning a Kickstarter reprint this year. Hopefully they don't touch the game in any meaningful way. I would just like a straight reprint so people can experience the game. I really hope they don't muck it up and Secret of the Lost Station it. I do hope they touch up some of the art and some of the graphical design would be very nice because it is kind of an ugly game. But I think there's a charm and kind of a joy in its ugliness. So at its core, this is a kind of a tile laying dungeon crawl game where you are going to be playing one of any number of characters, and there are quite a few. This is all of the characters that I know of from all the expansions and even a couple promos. We have Bianca Sinclair, Joa Deeb, Harrison Quatermainus the 13th, Vampirella, I think she was a promo character, Adam Van Helsing. The art on both of those, if they kind of go maybe more in a EC Comics style for a redesign of the art, that would be amazing. James T. Temple, we got two of him for some reason. I know why. We'll go over that in a minute. Alligator McPhee, Iron O'Sullivan, Professor Forrestal, A.J. Wegman, Haji Singh, Christopher St. George, Chang Li Dao, Libby Via, Lady Rocket, Heidi DuPont, and General Drake. Now, one thing that Deborah over on Geek Gamers that she noticed that I never noticed before, and it's too bad. I wouldn't mind if they updated this in a new edition. But all of the normal female characters, all of them except for Vampirella, all only have a strength of 1. Like every single female character. And that's just a little odd. That's something that I would expect from like Games Workshop in the 80s and 90s. So maybe they can update that a little bit. But these characters are like the newer character cards that come in one of the expansion. And these characters can ascend. And that's why I had this other Harrison Quatermainus the 13th in here, because this is one of the old character cards. So what's cool is on the old character cards, and I still have those, you have a little bio, kind of like your G.I. Joe bio card, your data sheet on the back of your G.I. Joe toys, but it has their name, their birth, their gender, origin, current location, call sign, their zodiac, their best attribute, weaknesses, skills, and then a story. On the new cards, you can actually play a version of the game where you level up and you become a more powerful version of that character. And so all of these have their more powerful side on the back. And this character here is totally ridiculous because he is made for solo play. And the way that the game balances actions, it is an action point system game where you're going to have a certain number of action points to take actions, and those action points are going to be represented by these bullets here. And basically, every time you play the game, you are going to use basically all of these bullets and then divide them up with how many players are playing. So that is kind of how it, if you have fewer characters, each takes more actions. I think him, if you're playing solo, you take like 13 actions on your turn. It's absolutely ridiculous. Maybe it's 12, but 13 is in my mind for that. And he's just super powerful. He's the total Mary Sue of the bunch. He can do no wrong. And I really don't like playing solo with this character. I really enjoy playing this game with two heroes. But that is how it works. So you're going to pick a explorer, an adventurer, and you're going to take one of their standees. So there are 3 different kinds of standees once you add in the expansion. You have these standees that you are going to use when you start the game as your level 1 character. And then when you level up, when you ascend by accomplishing a certain goal, you're going to level up your character's little standee to this tall standee. And these are a lot like the standees that came with Secrets of the Lost Station, which is one thing I really did like about that game, are the standees. And so you're going to be able to kind of level up. And so instead of having this bust style character, you will have a full figure character. And that is really cool. And then there's a third type of standee that you can also play a trader mode. I've actually never played that mode. I don't really like semi-co-op games where there's a trader. Sometimes it's okay, but this game is so long sometimes that I have a feeling that like the trader role, it could be pretty crappy for somebody if they become that. But these are what you would use when you become a trader. You become this kind of like vampiric, pale version of yourself with like blood on you. Look at that hunky dude. But yeah, so that is the 3 different standees and the characters there. But once you pick a character, you're going to start in the tomb, and you're also going to pick a scenario. And this is the core scenario book here. How many? I think there are about 8 different scenarios in the book, ranging from easy to difficult, ranging from 120 minutes to about 3 hours. And you're going to start here with the Pharaoh with blue eyes. 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. The Forsaken. The Legend of Herathulu, the Herald of Cthulhu. Easy for me to say. That's a long adventure. How long is this one? 150 minutes, they say. And this is a difficulty of hard. Yeah, that one, I've never won that one. The Collective. The Bane of Blackbeard. This is a shorter adventure, only 60 to 90 minutes, and it's medium. It's a little more of a complex setup. Onmyoto, the Legend of Masamune Swords. That's a cool one. I like that one a lot. And yes, and that is it. So you're going to pick a character, you're going to pick a mission, and then you are going to start in the temple. And the temple is always going to have the same basic setup. You're going to have 3 different levels. Level 4 is in one of the expansions, and we can take a look at that a little later. But you have level 1 is where you're going to start. And so you have your tomb entrance there where you come into the tomb. And then it goes down on those stairs to level 2. And then from level 2, you can find a way down to level 3. Or there might be some ways from level 1 to get all the way down to level 3, but you can't use the stairs. You have to use a rope or find some other method of getting down. And so you're going to take your character and you're basically going to move your character around, spending actions to move, spending actions to explore. Now, I know I have said before that I don't like games with a lot of tiles, or I find a lot of tiles can sometimes be cumbersome. This game does have quite a few tiles, especially when you add in all of the expansions. Just move some of these out of the way real quick. So you have one stack of tiles and we have another. So yes, that is quite a few tiles. However, most of the time in this game, it doesn't really matter what tile you draw. You draw randomly until you find a tile that matches the floor that you are on. So if you are exploring in floor 1, the next tile you have to draw has to have level 1 on there. If you were in level 2, you have to draw a tile that says it's for level 2. Some tiles can be used for any level, and so this could be used for levels 1 through 3. This tile here can only be used in level 4. This tile can only be used in level 3. And so most of the time you're just going to be drawing a tile until you find one that matches your level. Every once in a while you do have to search through these to find a certain tile, because sometimes you might find tiles that are somehow through a secret entrance or a teleportation device, that they are somehow connected. And so then you have to find the other one to place it so you can move adjacently. So that is really the only time where this game slows down, when you are playing the game looking for tiles. So this is a game that I don't particularly mind having a lot of tiles, especially because a lot of these are just really fun. You will have different ways to find different artifacts. You will have different story triggers. Each tile has a name. Each tile will tell you what kind of adventure you are going to have, whether it is an adventure that leans towards good or bad, or a misadventure. You will be told if you can search in these tiles and what you can find, what happens if you succeed in your search, what happens if you fail in your search. And every single tile is different. Some of these are traps and they will trigger a certain number of times. Each time a character enters the room, you have to pass a certain test, or the trap triggers and you take health or courage damage. Courage is one thing. It's a sliding scale. As you go up in courage, you get bonuses to your attributes, and as you become more scared and you lose courage, you take penalties to eventually, when you get to -10 courage, you are so scared that you have to flee the tomb. And this is actually a character overlay that goes on the cards, where you keep track of your health and you keep track of your audacity. Everything Epic Games uses this audacity stat in just about every single one of their games. And this is just a way that you can mitigate some luck by doing re-rolls or spending it on other things. And you have these little pegs here that you keep track of where you are on your courage track. This is one thing that I hope that they do kind of change up. It's really fiddly and it's not very cool, but again, it just looks crazy. I mean, this is this game in a nutshell, just audacious. One thing I should mention too is each of the characters has a couple special skills, and will have their starting items. And sometimes when you start with fewer than 4 players, you also start with companions and extra things to help you on the way. This game does a really good job of balancing for fewer than a full complement of characters. And then you also have your stats. You have strength, dexterity, knowledge, mythos, and movement. But one nice thing that the base game does come with are some really nice cheat sheets that pretty much lay out everything you need to play the game. You're going to have the phases of the game, your adventurer phase, where the adventurers are going to be taking each of their turns, using action points for movement, to search, to have combat, to use a special ability, to use an item, pick up an item, rest, trade, or deal with the soulmonger. As you gain experience, you can go to the soulmonger in different spots in the temple to spend your experience and spend your money on super powerful items there. Then after the adventure phase, you're going to have the tomb phase, where you figure out how the monsters are going to act. It has a really nice flowchart here, a listing of what you do in combat, because combat is a little fiddly, but I actually kind of like it. Then it also has all of your icons on here. And I actually wrote here the way that when you go into a new room, first you deal with any explore actions, then you deal with any traps, then you look for any scenario triggers, and then you have your adventures or your misadventures. So the scenario triggers are how these stories progress. And basically, as you're moving around through the dungeon, you will come across these little icons like this, these little pyramid icons. And there's going to be ones with 1, 2, or 3. And usually the first time you hit 1, you go to your storybook and you read what happens. And so this tells you in each scenario how certain things are triggered. And it's not like Secrets of the Lost Station where you constantly have to be thinking about it. Here it's just like when you first hit the 1, you know you're going to do a trigger. When you hit a number 2, you know you're going to hit a trigger. When you hit a number 3, and so on. And then you go and you read what happens. Usually this is going to how the bosses are going to come out. You will have certain stat checks. You will find certain artifacts that will help you kill a boss. And you're going to be progressing through that scenario as you hit your story triggers. And that's basically how the game is played. The main thing you want to do is you want to explore, you want to find new items, you want to level up, you want to get more powerful, to eventually you're going to trigger, the boss is going to come out and you are going to have to face off with the boss or some final threat. When you level up, you get these little tokens that you can add to your character sheet that will allow you to roll more dice. It is a basic kind of Arkham horror style dice system, but instead of D6, you're going to use D12s, where 5s and 6s are successes. These D12s are basically just 2 D6s, 1 D6 repeated, with 6s being criticals, 1s being critical misses. But you basically, if you have a stat of 4, you're going to take your 4d12, you're going to roll them, you're going to look for 5s or 6s, and you need a certain number of successes to succeed. Sometimes if you're blessed, a 4, 5, or 6 can be a success, or if you're cursed, only a 6, and so on. But that's basically how the game is played. The scenarios are varied. They all feel different, even though they're using like the same kind of components. But each of the scenarios has a different feel. It has great flavor text with a different kind of boss, different monsters, and different things that are going to happen while you are exploring and building the tomb. And let me tell you, these tombs can get huge. I mean, it can easily take up this whole small table. I've had it take up a huge table, and we had to go off the table once onto a auxiliary table. So yeah, that is a brief overview of how the game is played and the characters, and just a quick look at the base game. As far as the rulebook goes, I feel it's pretty good. There is a couple pages of errata and an FAQ that you can print out and look at, but I don't really have much trouble with the rulebook as it is written. It has lots of good flavor in here, tons of pictures and examples. It is overall a pretty good rulebook, especially for a big fiddly Kickstarter game. That is one thing that I think Everything Epic does, is they make good rulebooks. They're not always perfect, but I've never had trouble learning a game from reading one of their rulebooks. And that is true also with Big Trouble in Little China, which also needed an FAQ and a little bit of errata, but that is fine. Like I said in my video about rulebooks, I don't expect perfection. I just expect to know how to play the game when I'm done reading a rulebook, and I want to be excited about playing the game after I'm done reading the rulebook. And this book accomplishes both of those goals. It has a good index. Then at the end, you do get some more information about the characters. And you get a nice little cheat sheet on the back. So that is the first detailed look at Secrets of the Lost Tomb. The next game in the Dungeon Dive Hall of Fame, the Dungeon Dive Masterclass series. Later on this week, I will have video 2 where we're going to be taking a look at all the cards. And then video 3, we're going to be taking a look at the expansion books and a few other things that came along with the expansions. And then maybe video 4, we'll have some final thoughts for a wrap-up. So, all right, guys, well, I hope you enjoyed this look at Secrets of the Lost Tomb. Stay tuned for more, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.